Hello, hello, dear friends and family. Captain Starsky here. Happy coffee, everyone. Um, so good to see you, my friends, as always. So good to see Ellie and Newman and Silver Earth. Hello, hello. And all the beautiful people, Michael, Matt, all the family here, as always. Today we will talk about. I changed the perspective just a bit. Gotta do it from time to time. Today we're going to talk about several events and upcoming events, specifically in the Terrorist Federation. Um, their Victorgy Day. Victorgy is not a typo, it's like the core of it, all right? And of course, we're also gonna talk about Tuapse about some new volcanoes burning in the Terrace Federation. Such an interesting place, actually. Besides swamps, they have plenty of working volcanoes, active volcanoes. We call them Vesuvio volcano. Vesuvio volcano, right? In Russian language, they have a word called Nevezuha, which means misfortune, basically. That is why in Ukrainian media we call them Nevesuvio volcanoes, just so you know. And first of all, the main headline, and it was very, very much shared and discussed in the Ukrainian media and the Russian media as well yesterday about the upcoming Russian Victorgy Day. Just so you know, imagine 4th of July in the United States multiplied by 10, the whole intensity of this, multiplied by 10, add plenty of Russian fascists, balalaika, vodka, and bad roads. And basically, you have the Victorgy Day in the Terrorist Federation. No other holiday in the Terrorist Federation is as important for Russian fascists as the Victorgy Day, because that's basically when they celebrate the big victory of Ukrainians, Belarusians, Uzbeks, and a bit of Russian people over the Nazi Germany in the World War II. Again, they don't really recognize the World War II. They only recognize the so-called Great Patriotic War. We already talked about this. And every time in Moscow they have this big parade, we streamed this stuff. Last time, all right, last year, it was kind of interesting to see. There's so much visual effects. Oh my god, a lot of 3D animation instead of like the real thing. But we're going to talk about the Victory Day that is going to take place in Moscow this year. It's planned, it's still gonna take place there, all right, on the Red Square, but with a tiny, tiny caveat. So just to give you an idea of what the Victorgy Day is in Russia, basically, that is what it looks like. You can see Russians decorating their kids in military uniforms, doing like crazy, cringy things, all right? Things like that. Basically, ISIS, all right? Like, if you imagine ISIS with snow and bears, that's basically Russia for you right there. Only instead of decorating their kids as shahids, or mujahidins, they decorate their kids as Russian soldiers, which is basically the same, all right? Like these kids, for example, they hold the placard called "To Kiev," all right, towards Kiev, but it's before the full-scale invasion. Like, I believe that this picture was taken like 2015. I know because my God, and Andre, yes, yes, I shaved with a scythe, and that is why um, I had to change my dislocation on the screen just a bit. So, returning to our topic, Yeah, of course, you can see a lot of freaks doing things like this and that. This is, by the way, very, very good illustration. All right, so you had some sort of imagination. Why do Russian fascists actually decorate their kids like their enemy that they're defeated, and they must be extremely happy about this. But what do we know? Oh my God, like, why do they do this even? I have literally have no idea. But again, my friends, Russia is basically an ISIS, all right? Only with snow. Um, So, according to the most recent updates, including those coming from the Russian terrorists, the current parade in the Terrorist Federation will look actually very, very sad this year because you remember, I believe, not the last year, but the year before it, they brought a whole tank to the Red Square. It was T-34, as far as I remember, and the next year they managed to bring quite a few tanks to the Red Square, um, and they also used plenty of CGI to actually make it look more scalable or whatever. Hard to say. Um, this year they will not be bringing any tanks. Why last year they did it? Last year they actually collected whatever could move, all right? They didn't bring like their Armata tanks, as far as I remember, because you need like a donkey to tow it. But they brought quite a few tanks and missiles, APCs, whatever they have, because they were not using them much at the front that time because of the drone hazard. All right, so that was the moment when actually the war shifted, and instead of burning expensive tanks and expensive APCs, they were literally burning their men on donkeys, on horses. That's where we saw donkeys in the Russian cavalry being introduced for the very first time. And then they also used the Chinese golf carts and bikes. There is why the tanks that were not involved, right? Much. They could be brought to Moscow to literally show off. And we also talked about other cities where parades also took place, where actually, like, the Russians were riding the golf carts and showing off, like it's their most recent military know-how. So this year, there will be no tanks whatsoever. Again, according to the Russian media themselves, according to Russian officials. Why is that? Uh, First of all, because the situation changed again, and currently Russians are very, very much anxious about the Ukrainian deep strikes. Okay, because if you watched the updates from Tuapse, from Perm, by the way, this morning, you can actually see that the Ukrainian long-range capacity is now uh, absolutely incredible. Like, it's magnificent. Ukraine strikes targets 2,000 kilometers away from its border, and Russia basically cannot do anything. Besides that, very, very important moment is that Russia is lacking the air defense missiles, right? They have deficit. The media, the Ukrainian general staff, the Russian officials are also talking about this. They are facing the deficit of air interceptors, so they kind of can bring something, all right? They can stretch their thinning air defense and bring some kind of stockpile closer to the Moscow city. But what does it mean? It means that on the Victory Day, Russians will be celebrating with 10 other Tuapse burning, Nevizuvia volcanoes burning around the Terrorist Federation. So uh, They say that the mechanized calm is being removed. The terrorist Ministry of Defense and Stolen Toilets is saying that there will be no military equipment calm because of the current operational situation. How to decipher this? Current operational situation in the Russian language, which calls explosives claps, all right. Um, so fucked up. Oh my god. Russians are calling explosives claps. They call like strikes on their uh, strategic objects and oil refineries a debris. Very precise debris, very nasty debris. Yeah, but here they also say that the threat of Ukrainian drone attacks um, not specifically on Moscow, on other regions, because of course they will have to protect Moscow with more air defenses, taking them from other places, all right, relocating them. They are basically calling this the current operational situation, just so you could understand, all right? If they could speak freely, if Russia had free media, for example, if their media were a bit more professional, they would, of course, say, guys, we will not see the armored column on this victory day for a few reasons. Reason number one is because of the threat of Ukrainian drone attack, because you know that Ukrainian drones fly very, very far these days and in big numbers, all right? Secondly, because we don't have much air interceptor missiles. And thirdly, even if we bring everything to protect Moscow, Ukraine will strike other places. And that is why we decided to choose the lesser evil, and we will simply not have the military calm on this parade, but you still can drink and like poop on children's playgrounds, like do what you usually do on Victor Orgy Day, dear Russians. So you're still free to celebrate. You can imagine tanks, you can put your kid into a baby trolley and decorate it as a tank as you usually do, right? So basically nothing changed. You can still celebrate. But because they cannot say that, Russians are not allowed to speak freely. They cannot open their mouths without consulting with terror Russian leadership. Of course, they cannot say that. That is why they call it the current operational situation. Um, So this means that they also lack confidence in their security, meaning that Ukraine basically made the terrorist federation look over its shoulder. All right, they're very, very anxious about this, and for example, Die Welt reported that the parade will be held without tanks and missiles because of concern of Ukrainian drone attacks, while regional Russian events and the Immortal Regiment commemorations are being moved online and adjusted depending on security conditions. 2022, just to remind you, like maybe somebody doesn't know, maybe somebody forgot. I forgot a lot since 2022, but 2022 they were saying Kyiv in 3 days. They were saying Ukraine has nothing to fight with. Even 2025, one degenerate said that Ukraine has no cards, and what we can see 4 years after that is Russians literally canceling their military calm at their biggest holiday, all right? That is the holiest, the most sacred holiday in the Terrorist Federation. They cancel it because Tuapse burning, because volcanoes erupt all over the Terrorist Federation, and now they also um, lack the air interceptors and things like that. So we also know that other Russian regions, even those where we saw parades involving the Chinese golf carts, all right, the latest Russian military innovation, the donkey columns. That's what they should actually bring, to the parade. That'd be really cool. Actually, Russians enjoy, this показуха, how to translate this one. Показуха is basically show off, all right? Show off. So they could actually show off some kind of cavalry parades. Why not? All right. After all, it's Russia, it's historical downtown and stuff. In my personal opinion, that would be very, very beautiful. So other regions also scale down the celebration. I am not very sure if they're gonna celebrate the military parade in Tuapse, because generally when you look at Tuapse, for example, like 2022, again, just to remind you, because somebody might say, "You Ukrainian terrorists, what are you doing to those common Russian people?" So if you check out Tuapse in 2023, I am sorry about this stuff. You can see that Russians were actually very, very patriotic in Tuapse, celebrating the beginning of the war in Ukraine. Look at these smiling faces. This lady on the screen goes like, "Yay, finally, we invaded Ukraine. Let's let's attack, let's kill them all. Go boys, kill all Ukrainians, everything will be fine. Let's hold flags. Let's show Russian soldiers that beautiful city of Tuapse is supporting the Russian forces in Ukraine. Let's show it to our guys there in Ukraine. Like, I cannot say that there were like a lot of people participating in this. All right, that looks like their main square or something. But still, still. And also you can see that a lot of them are actually young. You can see that most probably those are representatives of the so-called Russian Putler all right, Russian. Yeah, I almost said Hitler's youth, Russian Putin's youth, all right, Jungguardia, all that crazy crap, all right, representatives of that movement, the fascists. And they are very, very happy back then in 2022. They go, "Yay, Russian special military operation goes according to the plan." The dude is like, "Dude, you're not holding your flag right. Okay, you have to hold it like this." Um, this says Rosmorport, Russian seaport. Okay. So that's beautiful people of beautiful Russian Tuapse, the seaside town. Again, you can see hello, Carlito. You can see that Russians in Tuapse were very patriotic, very supportive towards their brave soldiers stealing toilets and stuff like that. And now they don't look very happy for some reason I cannot explain. So will they hold a celebration in Tuapse? I don't know. Most probably not, because Tuapse is currently being evacuated, and if you watched some videos coming from this amazing seaside resort city, all right, everybody were envious. Everybody in Russia were envious towards the people of Tuapse, because they live on the seaside, beautiful nature and things like that. And nobody blames Putin for what has happened, which is again very, very typical. And by the way, we will talk about this because you probably remember Bonya, the situation with Bonya. You can forget about this shit now. So switching to Tuapse itself, you can. Holy crap! This stuff is absolutely infernal. All right, which is a direct result of Putin's war in Ukraine. Literally, when you see things like that, uh, think about all the missiles that Russia launched at Ukraine since 2022. And literally, I remember 5 a.m. I wake up because of the boom boom sounds, all right, coming from the outside. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Is that like missiles or something? So those missiles that Putin launched at Ukraine in 2022, that on your screen, those Russian missiles coming back home, okay, like all that stuff. That's literally Russian war right there for you. Okay. So at this point, the situation is very tough, and most probably they will be evacuating the city because the oil is literally burning on the streets. This dude is actually very interesting. He reports on Russian governor, all right? Russian governor arrived to Tuapse. Putin keeps ignoring the situation in Tuapse. He only mentioned it once. But governor finally, after like a week of strikes and fire and eruption of this volcano in Vesuvio, Putin actually sent his governor to go to Tuapse.
13 часов ровно, и вот на пляж пострадавший.
So the dude says this is time and date, and you can see that the governor of Tuapse, of our region, arrived to Tuapse to see the beach that suffered because of the
нефтепродуктов
oil, all right?
В городе Туапсе приехал губернатор
There's the governor
Краснодарского края
of the Krasnodar region,
Вениамин Иванович Кондратьев.
Mr.
Обратите внимание, сколько сразу кораблей появилось.
And he says very interesting thing. He says, also, do you notice how many ships immediately emerged? All right. So it's not like the dude arrived to the disaster site to assess, the functioning of their, like, yo Martin, hello, to assess how the services work, how the rescue services work, and stuff like that. No, guys, because we're talking about Russia, that's obviously the Показуха country, okay? So the dude arrived, and instead of actually fighting the fire, instead of eliminating the disaster, right, and stuff like that, the Russian officials, the services, everybody else were running around like they're being poked in their asses by a burning rooster, and they were setting the decorations on site. So they were like, oh shit, the governor will arrive, what should we do to please the sire? All right, and they go like, first of all, we gotta line up a lot of people with those boxes on the beach, because as you can see, they're not removing oil from the beach, they're just standing there, they're lined up. The dude came there to actually see his serfs, all right, to observe. It's like an exhibit for him, okay? It's not like he came there to see how they work. He came there to see what they look like, how they stand, all right, in place, what kind of equipment they have. You can see that they have some kind of protective suits, and they basically stand there and smoke, okay? And besides that, you can also see plenty of ships in the sea at this point. The same as this dude says, like, look at all that. What are those ships doing there? They're just there to please the sight, all right, to please the eyes of the governor of Krasnodar Krai, some kind of corrupted fuck. If you remember the Potemkin village, that's the Potemkin disaster, actually, right there for you. That's something very, very typical for Russia, right? So he's just standing there and literally observing. So let's hear what this dude is saying.
Обратите внимание, сколько сразу кораблей появилось.
Check out how many ships emerged all of a sudden when the dude arrived.
Для того, чтобы показать, что работа идет.
To show that we are working, everything's fine, we have ships,
В порядке.
Everything's under control.
Надеюсь, губернатор увидит и другие пляжи.
And the dude says, I hope the governor will also see other beaches in Russia that were polluted.
Михайловского, Соснового,
Михайловского, Соснового,
ведомственные пляжи,
the state beaches,
Белая Руси, Майского.
Белая Руси, Майская. And all of a
Общается с
sudden,
волонтерами, с работниками.
yeah, talk to the volunteers, to the workers, rescuers. But all of a sudden, the dude decided to actually stop talking because he said too much. I don't know what he was thinking, but at this point, looking at this dude's video, I actually feel worried about him because he might go to prison because of that. And like, it's no joke. So, besides beautiful Tuapse, besides governors on your screen, besides all the show off, there's also Russian volunteers working. And this lady standing there and talking to the camera, she's actually one of the volunteers who help to remove this pollution, to help volunteers and stuff. And what she's saying is actually very interesting. Let's hear.
Потребность, она постоянная, проходимость людей большая, людей задействовано очень много.
She says, we have a lot of needs right at this point. There's a lot of people involved in liquidation, all right, of situation in Tuapse, and therefore we have a lot of needs because there's a lot of people working here on this side.
Нам необходимо обеспечить бесперебойное питание.
And she says, we need to provide them with constant ration.
Это могут быть оладики, блины, чебуреки, пирожки.
So we need pancakes, we need crepes, or how do you call them? We need pasties, we need basically food.
Береши, я не знаю, любая выпечка абсолютно, потому что люди хотят перекусить, взять.
We need any available sort of bakery because people want to eat in Russia, right? Russian rescuers need to eat, and that is why, please, dear Russian citizens or whoever can help, send us your pasties, send us your bakery to the beautiful Tuapse to support our rescuers, she says. I believe like majority of Russians would be like, are you fucking nuts? Do you know how much the eggs cost nowadays in the beautiful Russian Federation? Like, are you crazy? What kind of bakery? We'd better send you some, I don't know, 10 liters of fuel instead of like bakery. Are you serious?
Воды, идти дальше работать. Людей нужно обеспечивать питанием, к сожалению.
So she says, yeah, we need to unfortunately supply the people with the food. Why did she say unfortunately, к сожалению? Most probably it's because their services don't feed them well. I don't know, maybe. Because it's like, it's Russia. Who feeds their rescuers anyways? Besides heroic women like this.
Бесперебойно не получается, потому что все очень сложно.
She says, we cannot provide the people with constant food supplies, with constant provision, because everything is very complicated, all right? Just like the current operational situation in Moscow. Everything is very complicated, she says.
Много, людей тоже очень много. Поэтому это не фейк, мы ничего себе не забираем.
This is not fake, we're not taking anything for us. Really? Come on. Get real. Like, you think we're gonna believe that you're not taking anything for you?
Никуда не увозим. Все это здесь вот находится у нас.
Here you can see our distribution point.
Вот у нас палатка.
Over there, you can see the tent with not much supplies. Generally speaking, I don't know. It's either because they didn't get them or because they already took those supplies away. Okay, it was interesting. It was actually very, very much educational. Beautiful Tuapse, beautiful people. But if you think that Tuapse actually looks horrific, all right, these days, then you gotta also look at the Perm, because in Perm they also had a party. That is a Nevesuvia volcano in Perm, right there. You can see another puff of smoke. Can actually Perm turn into another Tuapse? Actually, it has a chance, like looking at what is going on there. Actually, yeah, Putin looking at this must be very, very happy. He's like, look at what my war has done. Finally, finally. Uh, I believe Putin can be actually like a CIA agent, all right? Like, of course, it's not the case, but what he does is actually what a real CIA agent would do if he was a president of the terrorist federation. Look at this. Um, the way Putin destroys Russia actually deserves my biggest respect, all right? So that is the Perm and Passat. That's actually not even the refinery. It's actually a very, very big factory in Perm. And the footage is actually very impressive, all right? Nice, nice. Well done, Valdemar. Well done. Russians are like, yay, finally. The funny thing, a lot of Russians were actually envious, as I said, to the people living in Tuapse. They were like, you fuckers, you live on the seaside. Why can't we? Well, generally, now people in Perm can live like in Tuapse. Great achievement. Thank Vladimir Putin for that. Again, some footage from Tuapse, and the craziest thing about this, like, yeah, the smoke is impressive, of course. I believe that Vesuvio definitely looked something like that. But besides this, it was reported that the smoke from Tuapse can be observed 150 kilometers away almost, which I believe is legit because if you fly on board of the airplane, 150 kilometers, 70, almost 80 nautical miles, that makes it actually possible. Actually possible. If you fly high, at the altitude around 11 kilometers, 11, 12. So if you fly on board of Boeing somewhere over Russia, which is nonsense, of course, because you better don't do that in Russia, right? Don't board Boeings in Russia. But if you do, you can actually observe that on your horizon, because yeah, the smoke is actually very real. That is the smoke of Russia's future, or basically what Russian future looks like these days. Wait a second, I have to switch to this one. Oh my god. Guys, I didn't expect to to read this. Yeah. But yeah, Trump looks very, very scary, all right, in his social media. Anyways, let's go back to our updates. So Военный осведомитель, that is a terror Russian media in the Telegram. They say that considering a very, very strong increase of military potential of Ukraine in terms of the daily launched long-range kamikaze drones and also Ukraine's testing, all right, Ukraine testing the ballistic missiles that theoretically can reach Moscow. The cancellation of big part of the parade at the Red Square actually looks very much expected and logical, okay? That is the way the Russians are trying to justify why they will not have the parade. They say, like, guys, you're laughing at us, all right? You're like, or you might be very dissatisfied because we will not have parade this year. Okay, like no tanks, stuff like that. But actually, you're fools because all that is to provide security because Ukraine has plenty of long range drones. They reach far. Ukraine launches them every day, and plenty of them can reach Moscow. And also, Ukraine is testing ballistic missiles. So, actually, it's logical. It's absolutely logical. The demilitarization of Ukraine, right there, my friends. And the fact is, nobody asks how come it possible that Ukraine in just 4 years reached the level of being able to strike Moscow with drones, ballistic missiles potentially very soon, right? How come all this became possible? Elvira Nabiulina, the chief of the central bank of the Terrorist Federation. You've heard about Nabiulina because one of her former deputies and advisors was Epstein's good friend, and that advisor was basically an FSB guy, Belikov. We talked about this in some of our previous streams. So Nabiulina is saying, in history of modern Russia, there were never such a deficit of working power as today. Any ideas why? Any ideas why they experience the deficit of manpower in their factories, in their industry? That's actually very interesting. What the hell happened all of a sudden in the Terrorist Federation? Where did all the men go? My God, I seriously, I don't want to talk about Trump in this stream, but turns out that I have no other option. Julie Davis, the ambassador of the United States in Ukraine, is quitting. She's resigning. She was виконуюча обов'язки. She was help me out here. How do you call a person that is assigned to the position but is not officially on the position but just does the functions? All right, we call it the person who does the functions of. All right, my God. Basically, like if Trump disappears, I don't know, goes to a bathroom, for example, JD Vance becomes his substitute, I don't know, supplant, whatever. So she was doing, she was performing the functions of the ambassador in Ukraine after the previous one also quit. And the reason she quit was because she wasn't really on the same page with Trump regarding Ukraine, because Trump was against Ukraine. Okay, guys, let's not pretend it's different. All right, guys, Trump was telling that ambassador, like, first of all, stop talking about Ukraine so much in the social media, apparently, right? Stop supporting Ukraine so much, stop calling for Ukraine's support so much, because this is not our agenda. In America, we are America first. Fuck Ukraine, fuck everybody else. Stop supporting Ukraine and be happy, all right? Because Putin is calling me, he's nagging all the time. He's like, what the hell are your diplomats doing? Why are they calling to support Ukraine? I cannot advance and I cannot take more territory. So just like restrain them, all right? So the previous ambassador actually quit because of that. She wasn't on the same page with Trump. She kept supporting Ukraine, and after her, Mrs. Davis was assigned to this position, and currently she's resigning because she's also not on the same page with Trump. And basically, the Financial Times report that Julie Davis lost interest to this position because she doesn't really support the decision of Trump to shrink the support for Ukraine. So she quit as well, and this actually looks like a trend. I don't think that Trump will really recognize the signal. Why is it even happening? Okay, but at least, my God, let me move myself somewhere out of the screen. Over there, I look perfect here. Yeah. But besides that, I believe that it's very, very typical, all right? It's a very, very good indicator that most probably the dude is not actually doing his job well. Very interesting update actually coming from Jean Reno, one of my absolutely favorite French actors and artists. I am not afraid to call him an artist. He presented a novel about Russians kidnapping Ukrainian children. The book is called L'évasion, which means the escape. And it talks about the forceful deportation and forceful assimilation of Ukrainian children during the Russia's war in Ukraine. And in his book, Jean Reno is talking about Emma, a former masseuse that is being recruited by the French external intelligence called DGSE, and undercover she goes to Siberia to sneak into the so-called rehabilitation camp, or basically the indoctrination camp for Ukrainian teenagers, and document the crimes that also include the forcefully keeping those kids inside, all right, and also the indoctrination of those kids. Jean Reno is absolutely freaking legendary. I tell you that. Leon Killer, Leon the Assassin. Turns out he's actually a very, very decent guy. Besides his roles in the movies, besides his characters, all right. I'm literally applauding, and I would actually read that book. Oh my God, why is this dude here again? I don't know. The Chancellor of guys, remember the other day we had this compilation thanks to heroic Ellie. We had the compilation of the best commentaries on my channel, coming not necessarily from MAGA, also from Russians, but there were a few MAGA guys that made me feel so happy, reading and explaining their commentaries. And this one is something that also requires our explanation, I would say. So Donald Trump in his social media says the Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, thinks it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Does Iran actually have nuclear weapon? That's interesting. It's basically like Ukraine was attacked because Russia was afraid of Ukraine's membership in NATO. It never existed in physical world. Like Ukraine wasn't even promised NATO membership. Nuclear weapon in Iran, if it existed, we would actually know about this. We know that nuclear weapon in North Korea exists. Does Trump do anything about it? No fucking way, he doesn't. Okay, apparently because Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't really care about North Korea at this point, in my personal opinion. But yeah, nuclear weapons in Iran, holy shit. If Russia wanted, Russia would freaking send them a bunch of Oreshniks with nuclear missiles like they did in Belarus, all right? And then, yeah, Trump, you're justified, all right? But he doesn't know what he's talking about, Trump says about Friedrich Merz. If Iran had a nuclear weapon, the whole world would be held hostage. Isn't the whole world held hostage at this point by DPRK, China, Russia? Apparently not, all right? Apparently because Trump doesn't consider his best friends his adversaries. I am doing something with Iran right now that other nations or presidents should have done long ago. No wonder Germany is doing so poorly, both economically and otherwise. And this is something I want to talk about just a bit, both economically and otherwise. Germany is doing so poorly. If you listen to Trump, you might actually think that Germany is struggling economically, that Germany is actually a very, very poor country, struggling big time, all right? Some people would, of course, say, don't listen to what Trump is saying, listen to what he's doing, you know. But when Trump says this to his audience, to people who still support the yellow degenerate, that's basically what those people actually retransmit after that, all right? Because people supporting Trump and living in the United States, they probably think that Germany is a poor country. They're doing very, very bad economically. I'm not even going to use ChatGPT. I'm going to use Google, all right? How strong is Germany economically? Because when you listen to Trump, that's basically what you gotta do. You gotta just Google, okay? Just fucking Google what he says to understand, okay? So, straight away, Germany is the largest economy in Europe and the third largest in the world, with a GDP of roughly 4.47 trillion euros. As a global export leader with a strong industrial base, it is characterized by highly innovative SMEs and high-value manufacturing in automotive and chemical sectors. Name any truck, all right, used to haul the cargo, all right, around the world. Name any. Okay. Mercedes, Actros, whatever. So, largest European economy, global export powerhouse. Germany consistently ranks among the top three, and this consistency was present and kept for, I don't know, forever, for decades. Germany consistently ranks among the top three exporting nations globally, trailing only the US and China. So, it's not a secret that United States and China are the world's leading exporters at this point. Germany is in top three. Germany is the third one. Germany is doing so poor, according to Donald Trump, economically. So Germany is fucking in top three world exporters as of this point. Why does he say so? Is it because he doesn't understand the situation? And basically, I think it's because he doesn't fucking care. He doesn't even know where Germany is fucking on the map, all right? Let's be real. He barely knows the difference between Hamburg and Berlin, in my personal opinion. The Mittelstand backbone. About 99% of German business are small and medium-sized enterprises, which, by the way, it's not like they have those huge transnational corporations, which they do have. but their businesses are very, very strong. The smaller and medium-sized enterprises are extremely strong here, which are known for being global leaders in specialized niche markets. Industry makes up over 25% of gross value added, the highest share among G7 countries. So you could understand. Okay. They had recent challenges, weak recovery since 2024, when Germany has experienced one of the slowest recoveries among advanced economies. Trade disruptions, high energy costs, and things like that. Internal strains, corporate insolvencies, rising unemployment. Yes, we have that. We also have that in other countries. In Russia, for example, the lack of manpower and deficit resulted in Russia only growing less than 1% of GDP this year, according to the World Bank. So, still, being one of the world's superpowers is not actually the same as acting so poorly, both economically and otherwise. I would actually want to know how much Trump contributed to the amazing raise of United States GDP. Um, I hope it kind of dismisses what he says. Let's switch from Germany and from the United States to Mali, all right, so where we can see the Russian vehicles that were actually dropped by glorious Russian soldiers that conducted a tactical retreat, all right. They actually did the gesture of a goodwill. And they gloriously attacked backwards. Okay, Russia doesn't withdraw. Russia only attacks always. They advanced backwards. They conducted successful backward attack, and now they lost some of their vehicles. They didn't lose their vehicles. All right. Again, let's not be very harsh on Russian Wagnerites. They actually left them there to show off, to the Mali rebels that look at our vehicles, look how strong they are. We left this one so you afraid of us, all right? So you would like be scared of our mites. Okay, we left our armored truck over there so you, like local degenerates, could just admire the power of Mother Russia, all right? See how strong our armor is and expect those trucks to come to your backyard tonight. Okay. uh, that looks like a Russian BTR. Or is it? No, it's not a BTR considering the tracks. Looks like actually MTLB with installed heavy machine gun on top. This stuff is actually a module, all right? But the thing itself is MTLB. Again, you can see the Mali dudes standing on top of it, and Russia is basically saying, you see how strong our vehicles are, how indestructible they are, so you can stand on them. The armor will not bend. Oh, this one is interesting. Let's check it out. This one is yeah, that is Russian BTR actually. Yeah. Yeah, that's a BTR. Was I wrong about this one? Yes, I was. So that is actually Russian BTR, my friends. I misidentified the trucks and the wheels. You could see the similar one on some of my videos from host Turmoil. Actually, we had quite a few of them burned in the hangars, all right? They looked a bit different. They had a different color. But this one actually looks pretty much intact. They're shitty. Frankly speaking, they are very, very shitty compared to Ukrainian BTR 3 or 4. This one actually sucks in terms of armor. But the Russian ideology is basically, if you don't burn in Hostomel, if you don't get toasted near Chasiv Yar, you will definitely get toasted in other place, because according to the Russian ideology, everybody should die. All right. I enjoy this. I'm sure you've seen this one, but the Inferno, the Russian future right here. Beautiful Tuapse, amazing family resorts on the seashore, all right? Please come visit. Better don't. Yeah, this stuff is really, really bad. But again, my friends, blame Putin. That's actually what Putin did. And this one, oh my god. I need to take a sip before I translate this one for you, because you will probably laugh. This is Itartas. This is the leading Russian national television agency. That's basically like Reuters, only in Russia with drunk editors. All right. Ah, okay. Are you ready? Are you prepared? Do you have air in your lungs? Because you will need it. Ah, okay, I'm ready. Into Tuapse, the fire emerged because of the debris of the UAV that fell on the oil refinery. There are no casualties, according to the operative headquarters of the Krasnodar Krai. Why I'm not laughing at this? Wait, okay, like if you hear the same fucking joke being repeated over and over again, kind of stops me. Oh wait, yeah, I actually start laughing just a bit. Yeah, amazing high precision debris fell on Tuapse refinery, according to the most honest Russian media that never lie. Which again, this is Russia's state television. That's Russia's state news agency. Cyber GPS guided debris, high precision, very nasty, extremely dangerous. All right, extremely flammable. The destruction rate of Ukrainian debris is literally unimaginable. Russians should actually think about this. Like, they're building like fucking drones and stuff, GPS guided. Use debris. Come on. In Tuapse, the fire emerged on the oil refinery because of the falling the debris of the UAVs. Yeah, and that's basically the people who call explosions collapse. Um, how will they call the fire? They actually already have the proper name for the fire, because whenever they have fire somewhere in the area, uh, here they use the word пожар, which is literally the fire. But I believe like 2023, 24, when their refineries started burning, actually, like slowly, but they did. They were calling the fires the задымление, which is smoking. Smoking. We talked about this, I remember. Yeah. Smoking at the Russian oil refinery, which they don't even lie. Like, I mean, that's smoke. Yeah, technically, they are correct. Honest Russian media. Russian male bloggers are mad. Okay, they repost pictures and videos from Tuapse, and they say, last night there was another strike using the kamikaze debris made in Ukraine, strike on Tuapse, um, on the territory of the refinery, that the fire that was extinguished previously. There's another fire taking place there. Um, the result of Gerasimov, which means the result of missing missiles for Panzer air defense systems. Gerasimov! Wait a minute. Gerasimov! Where's missiles, блядь? Шойгу! Где снаряды? Another interesting update that is not related to Tuapse this time. So the Russians are nagging in the social media these days because they cannot collect as much money as they did. Because, there's quite a few of so-called Russian volunteers. We have a lot of decent people around the world. For example, people supporting Ukraine. They provide Ukraine with humanitarian aid, with military aid, all sorts of stuff, with encouraging commentaries, with good words. Basically, the best people in the world, right? Like you, my dear friends. And the Russians have volunteers of a smoker, all right, because you are volunteers of a healthy person. Russians have volunteers of a smoker, the dudes who literally provide like those golf carts to Russians, rubber flip flops and stuff like that. And they are nagging big time these days because they cannot collect enough money from the destitute Russian population. And one of the reasons, of course, besides the economical crisis, the growing economical unrest in Russia, one of the reasons is because Putin is blocking the Telegram and other messengers. And that is why they are reporting the catastrophic shrinkage. Shrinkage, is that even a word? Catastrophic decrease in collecting the money. They say the income on the channel decreased dramatically. Out of 1 million subscribers, and they actually have 1 million subscribers, that's Archangel Spetsnaza, the Russian Spetsnaz's archangel, all right? They say out of 1 million subscribers, only 10% are reading us, which is still a lot. That's like 100K. They say only 10% are reading us. That is why our fundraisers look very, very bad. My friends, at this point, less than 300 people are watching this stream. We're talking 292. Absolutely courageous, absolutely amazing people on the other side of the screen. Despite this, and by the way, I completely agree with Silver Earth, their karma ran over their dogma. That's a good way to put it, all right? But despite the fact that my channel is not watched by 100,000 people, we still managed to do crazy things. We managed to collect, for example, the fundraisers for Ukrainian 25th Air Assault Brigade, the land drones. 2 air assault brigades received land drones because of your help, all right, and your support. My guys received a truck with Car for Ukraine's help, again, because of you, due to your support. And if we take a look, for example, at channels like Jake Bro's channel or again Rig the Ukrainian doesn't have like enormous following, all right, like Tucker Carlson, unfortunately. But at the same time, they managed to supply Ukraine with all sorts of stuff due to the support of decent people from around the world. Russian channel, 100,000 subscribers reading them. All right, they have 1 million subs. They have a reach of 100,000 subscribers, and they cannot freaking collect enough money to buy drones and I don't know, equipment, flip flops. And that is the reason, my friends, why Russia is losing this war so badly. It's not only because Ukraine is striking them in the rear. You can see beautiful volcanoes erupting in Tuapse and things like that, which basically results in Putin losing money. But one of the reasons why Ukraine wins this war is because Ukraine is supported by the whole world, right? By true people with dignity, with decency, and basically the best people in the world, the way it should be, all right, the way it's supposed to be, in reality, all right, in the real life. Absolutely love Rick. I hope that he's doing great. Rick rollers rock. Okay, they not only roll, they also rock. And Rick is currently visiting a psychologist because I can definitely understand why. My bro is having a slight burnout, which is, again, I can completely understand, but he's very brave. He finds internal force to fight against this. He finds motivation, and actually his psychologist is very, very helpful according to his recent reports. Rick now feels very motivated, and also very important thing, he finally starts to learn how to sleep properly, all right, because that's something that we should all do. Rick says, like, I'm checking my phone every single fucking minute. It's wrong. I do the same. I literally, like, I live in the screen, all right? That's what I do all the time. I read before I go to bed. The only time I don't stare into the screen is actually when I eat. But even then, I might watch something. The other day, I was having a dinner and I watched a video about cooking. And that's when I realized that probably I should change something in my life, right? Because, like, uh, it's like working as a trucker, all right, and like haul your cargo all over the place, and then come home and sit behind the computer and play the Euro Truck simulators, basically, something like that. Okay, so Russians must celebrate Putin's decision to actually cut the Telegram channel, Telegram messenger in the Terrorist Federation, which I think was a very, very good decision. Not only the Russia's Starlink capabilities choked, all right, but also Telegram channel as well. We have some very, very interesting update coming from Khabarovsk. Khabarovsk, I enjoy every time Ukrainian good drones visit Khabarovsk because for some reason Khabarovsk in my head is associated with, all the best values of Russia's civilization, which is outhouses, poverty, destroyed roads, and plenty of angry people who want you dead only because you live in better conditions than them. And basically, Khabarovsk, Tambov, all those amazing places. They have this very, very special spot in my heart. All right. So in Khabarovsk, there was an assassination attempt. Elimination attempt. All right, let's call it properly. You remember Bucha. You remember what the Russian terrorists did in Bucha. If you don't, please check out some of my first videos on this channel. Reporting from Bucha, you will see. And one of the Russian war criminals responsible for this, his name was Azadbek Amurbekov, the Russian war criminal. He's currently Major General who commanded the Russian troops in Bucha. He's basically the one responsible for all sorts of crimes. He will go to jail like Radovan Karadzic, all right, or like Milosevic. He will go to The Hague if he survives. I give you 1,000,000%. Like Trump, yeah, 500%, 600%. But I think I think we will see that. I will see that happening. So it was reported that Azadbek Amurbekov almost became good in Khabarovsk. And as soon as it happened, this information was immediately classified by the Russian authorities. There was a bomb that was planted into his mailbox on his staircase. Does it mean that Major General Amurbekov lives in the apartment instead of a freaking large house? I don't know. Doesn't look very typical, but anyways. So we know that the package was received. We don't know about his current state because, again, the situation is classified. All the information was immediately made like top secret in the Russian media, etc., etc. So we don't really know about his current state. Did he become better and topped the list of Russia's generals eliminated in this war? Because we have something like 14 or 15 confirmed Russian generals, and the unconfirmed number may be as high as 21. Okay. But what we also know about this is that commander of the battalion of military communication, we're talking not like public relations, we're talking about take this fucking wire and run over there, that sort of communication. Commander of this battalion, Colonel Kuzmenko, was also eliminated. He became good after receiving this package on site. What happened to the Major General Amurbekov, the Russian war criminal, we still don't know. He might actually become better himself, and we don't know yet. But that's interesting. What does it mean? It means that, if he actually becomes better, it means that the children of Bucha actually passed their greetings. Okay, we have several very interesting satellite pictures. As you probably know, there was a strike in Kirovskaya Air Base, where Russians had plenty of their Orion FPVs. This attack took place on 2nd of April, which was like almost like a month ago, but still. We have several pictures showing what actually was destroyed at the base. And first of all, those are the storages of the Russian Orion UAVs. The guys, and I remember I made a report on this for the UATV, and unfortunately we couldn't provide like any footage because even though the general staff of Ukraine had proofs for some reason, apparently they couldn't provide them to the media, but now we have them, all right? And they reported that quite a few, something like we're talking thousands of Russian UAV type Orion were obliterated due to this strike. Now we can actually confirm that the storage units don't look good as a result of this successful attack. But besides that, it turns out that Russians also lost another aircraft. That to me looks like AN-72. Okay, it doesn't look like AN-72 to me. I would never tell the type of the aircraft, but it's reported it's reported here in the news. All right. So AN-72 was also obliterated and became better, and this is actually a footage. I love it when they show the footage from Ukrainian FPV drones. The crosshair is actually a heart. All right, it's made in the shape of the heart. So considering that it literally says fire point, I believe that it's FP2 drone. And that is literally before the impact. Like on this footage, I could definitely tell you that it was AN-72 because AN-72 has two very um, typical engines mounted on top of the wings like this. But on this picture, it's very, very hard to tell, all right? So, yeah. Definitely AN-72, I can confirm. By the way, I flew one. Oh shit, I remember. Back before the war, when I was a civilian, I had like a business trip from Kiev to Donetsk or vice versa, from Donetsk to Kiev, and I actually flew the AN-72, the civilian one, because it's not only used in the army, it's used as a passenger carrier aircraft. I remember because I was sitting literally next to the engine. I could see it clearly from the window, and I remember when it landed and the reversers opened. I was like, holy shit, that looks so cool. Imagine it explodes right there. So it was kind of fun. And now, as I think about this, I actually landed back then in the airport, in the Donetsk airport, and who would have thought, yeah, what will be happening there only several years after that. And literally next time I saw the Donetsk airport after that was when we were in Pisky, and I could literally see the runway on the other side of the buildings. Yeah, that was crazy. The STOL cargo airplane, well, it's used like the closest analog you can think about is British Aerospace 146. That one. I believe they even have the similar takeoff and landing characteristics. Just a second, just because I'm curious myself. Um, how do you compare takeoff and landing performance in BAE 146 and AN-72P? Just a second, because I want to know it myself, all right? British Aerospace 146, by the way, the royal family is flying one. It's a very, very interesting aircraft because it's kind of tiny, but it has 4 engines. Just so you could imagine, all right? Like that is the bird, and it's a really, really cool aircraft. It's a stall aircraft, all right? So this one could actually operate the London airport. I'm talking about the one in the downtown there is a very, very steep glide slope, and this one can actually make it. All right, so this one would land where only tinier jets like ERJ Embraers could land. So this one could land there as well. And it's also called Whisper Jet because even though it has 4 engines, but they're kind of tiny and they're kind of quiet. So answering your question, dear Bjorn, takeoff distance, oh, you will be impressed. The takeoff distance in British airspace, in that one, is between 14 and 1500 meters. That is roughly multiplied by 3. That is less than 5,000 feet. In Antonov, in AN-72, that is 1,170 meters. And takeoff roll 620. So it's between 1,800 feet and it's between 1,800 feet and roughly 3,300 feet. So it's Antonov, made in Ukraine, killed in Russia. Yeah, that's interesting. Landing distance for British airspace 146, 1,000 meters. It's like 1,100 meters, 1,200 meters. Landing distance for AN-72, 420 meters. Multiplied roughly by 3 to understand, sorry, by 3. To understand how many feet is that. But at the same time, the maximum takeoff weight of British airspace is almost 10 tons higher than in AN-72. So it kind of lands shorter and takeoff shorter than the BAE 146, but at the same time it's also lighter. It has a smaller maximum takeoff weight. Such a great discovery, yeah. I like the air brakes in the rear, yeah. This one is something that is actually iconic for this aircraft. Looks kind of, how to say it, kind of raunchy, all right, in my personal opinion. Yeah, beautiful bird, unfortunately eliminated by good Ukrainian drones. But again, oh my god, I have another update. You will probably laugh. So you know who Rogozin is, all right? Rogozin, the Russian Nazi, the Russian anti-Semite, who was a chief for the Russian Roscosmos for a while. Roscosmos is basically Russia's NASA. Russia's NASA. So he was the chief of this stuff. Then he was changed by another dude, and his name was Yevgeny Primakov. He was removed, and he was removed as a result of this kind of new reform in like reset of different Russia's departments that is currently being conducted by Putin. Most probably, Putin is literally removing the older people who have some kind of disconnect, right, with his agenda or something, and he puts the corrupted people who will be obeying whatever he says. And literally, he changed Yevgeny Primakov, and currently the new chief in Roscosmos is Evgeny Chaika. Wait, what is his name? Igor Chaika, yeah. So this dude over here, and I am not the one who will be body shaming you, but in Russia, if you look like this, it means that you eat a lot. And if you eat a lot in Russia, it means that you are either a corruptionist or you have a very rich parents, because Russians are destitute. He doesn't steal money, he fucking eats them. So this dude is known in Russia for being corrupted as fuck. There were plenty of scandals involving Igor Chaika. That one. This one is their former chief of Ros. Wait a minute. Россотрудничество. Holy crap. Why did I think it's Roscosmos? Guys, so first of all, I gotta admit, I need to drink more coffee. Roscosmos, why did I even mention it? Oh my god, I feel so stupid. Россотрудничество. Probably I didn't wake up or I fell asleep, the opposite way. Россотрудничество. So that is the organization that Russia uses to influence, to spread its influence abroad. We talked about Россотрудничество, Russian cooperation, so-called, or Russian collaboration, that actually funds a lot of so-called Russian houses around the world, that is present in all sorts of different institutions, academies around the world. They do like evening of Russian poetry and shit like that. And basically they fund people like Orban, like Fico, all the corrupted and pro-Russian fucks you can think of around the world. So basically that's the dude. Why did I don't know, maybe I have a tumor or something. But that's Россотрудничество, and this organization is very, very dangerous and shady, because they are literally the dudes who recruit the spies. They are the dudes who conduct reconnaissance in other countries and also spread their influence. They go like, okay, we need to present Russian culture from the best side, all right? We gotta show it as beautiful and, like millennia old and stuff like that. What do? Let's invite Tucker Carlson to Moscow, for example, so those are the guys. Okay. I'm very, very sorry for misinforming you. I'm trying to make up for it. Россотрудничество, like, my eye is deceiving me. So currently it was run by Primakov. We will talk about Roscosmos, Russian NASA in other episodes, of course. But this one was run by Primakov, who is now changed by Igor Chaika, that was involved in many corruption scandals. So basically, this dude is actually risking to to have his ass towed from his office and to, all right, if he becomes a chief of Россотрудничество, because that organization is laundering a lot of Russian money abroad, and it's not a tumor. Yeah, it's a very, very dangerous, very dangerous. Peter Griffin. Yeah, yeah, that's the guy. That's him right there. They look like honest people, 100%. When you look at those mugs, that's exactly how you imagine honest Russian people. S- Strong Russian management. All right. Wise Russian CEOs, right there. Top guys. Oh, so the whole initiative, why is this happening, is coming from Kiriyenko. Sergei Kiriyenko is one of the guys who is actually responsible for all sorts of propaganda coming from Russia's Kremlin. All right, he's behind the Prigozhin's internet research agency, whatever. He's behind the social engineering project, the one that was responsible for the doppelganger operation, and many others. All right. So Kirienko, his advisor of Putin in Kremlin, advisor and one of the tops in the Putin's administration, responsible specifically for informational operations, how to make MAGA support pro-Russian ideas, how to make people in America wearing red hats spread Russian propaganda on the internet, talk about Zelensky buying the royal palace in London and literally uh, ejecting the royal family from their home and driving around in Hitler's car and buying yachts, how to make American people supporting Trump talk about this, how to find connection with people like Tucker Carlson, how to invite Americans to the United States and make them record videos about the beautiful life in Russia, not the United States. Yeah, how to make them record beautiful videos about amazing Russian subway stations and yada yada yada. So Kiriyenko is the dude behind all this. All right. And from the initiative of Kiriyenko, all those changes in the department started, and now we have this amazing substitution in Россотрудничество in the sanction lists of European Union. Chaika, that Peter Griffin, is literally named as the wallet of the FSB, who actually financed operations of destabilization in Moldova. And he's considering his broad expertise in shadow financial schemes of Kremlin, actually, Peter Griffin's assignment as chief of the Россотрудничество can signalize the increased role of FSB, of Russia's special services, in functioning of Russia's establishments like Россотрудничество and other ones. Basically turning the whole purpose of Russia's state apparatus into a tool of the hybrid war. That's very interesting. Peter Griffin, my friends. Remember this FIES, we will be talking about this a lot in the future. This one is actually responsible for many hybrid operations abroad. Who knows? Maybe we will see him playing golf with Trump someday as well. So, speaking of Israel, this one is actually very big and very important. Recently, a cargo ship full of Ukrainian stolen grain arrived to Israel. The Israeli journalist Barak Ravid talked about this. He said that the ship was unloading in Haifa, so he actually exposed this to the public. And the fact is, this ship is sanctioned. It's sanctioned fucking everywhere, all right? By the EU, by the United States, I'm sorry, the Biden's administration and stuff like that. So this ship is under constant surveillance. People are watching this ship, all right, through different online services as well. And it arrived to Haifa and started unloading the stolen Ukrainian grain. On one hand, of course, we have this crazy humanitarian crisis. Crisis that was organized by Russia. We all remember when Russia, literally 2 years ago, started massively striking Odessa and Kherson ports, trying to destroy the port infrastructure. And those ports are specifically used by Ukraine and other countries to load grain and ship it to Africa, to India, to literally the whole world, all right? Morocco depends a lot on Ukrainian grain, Ukrainian bread, and many, many other countries. So Russia started destroying Ukraine's infrastructure, trying to starve the world. And that's basically what they do all the time. Russia is known for starving people. Russians organized the Holodomor, the artificial famine in Ukraine, actually 3 of them. The most like notoriously known is the one that took place 1932, 1933, but there are actually 3 of them organized by Russia trying to eliminate Ukrainian population on Ukrainian land. And Russia is known for doing this, for playing with food, for terrorizing people. It's like, I'm not surprising anybody by saying this, but the people around the world started suffering. And of course, when you see a huge ship of grain, and we are talking about tens of tons of tens of thousands of tons of stolen Ukrainian grain. When your country is suffering because of this, when the prices are growing, and you see a ship with tens of thousands of tons of grain on board, you don't really ask, does this grain belong to Ukraine? Like, is it even legal to unload this ship, to buy this grain from this company? How legal? Like, you don't really care because you have global food crisis caused by Russia. So Russia does everything, so you would now buy the stolen Ukrainian grain from them, all right? So you would not even question this, all right? Like, imagine if your I don't know, God forbid, one of your relatives has some kind of horrible disease, and you do whatever you can to find the treatment, all right? So you can even go to the black market and buy it from there. So from this standpoint, of course, you can understand why it's done, but literally it's the same as, how to compare it to Israel. All right, here's an example. 1941, Adolf Eichmann brings Jewish people massively to the concentration camps, all right, and unaliving them there. At the same time, United States decided to buy gold from Nazi Germany. It will be like the same comparison, all right? They go like, yes, of course, what H-Man is doing to our people is bad, but United States need gold because we need to invest more into our production and stuff. So, like, I'm sorry, all right? And why do you blame us? And basically, that was the response from the Israeli government because Ukrainian Foreign Minister Sibiga officially called the Israeli ambassador to his office. He gave him the protest note and actually blamed the Israeli government of accepting this grain. Like, imagine this shit. The Russians steal Ukrainian grain, they occupied Ukrainian territory, then they also strike Ukrainian ports, so Ukraine could not ship this grain, and created the food crisis. And then they say, we have grain, you can buy from us. You know, what do you do as a head of the state? Considering that your population needs bread, all right, needs food. Just so you could understand how the Russian terrorist scheme is working, all right, like their mindset. So Ukrainians blamed Israel in accepting the ship, in unloading and buying the grain, which is basically Ukrainian grain stolen from Ukrainian land, from Ukrainian people. And the chief of the foreign affairs of Israel actually blamed Ukraine back. He said that it was unprofessional, that diplomatic relations are not being made on Twitter, and there's also no proof that the ship is actually carrying Ukrainian grain, and this grain was even stolen from Ukraine. So this is a crazy scandal at this point. And by the way, Silver Earth is reminding something very, very important as well. There was Russia's richest oligarch, all right? You know that Trump said that not a single ship will pass the Hormuz Strait except if it waves a Russian flag, because the ship passed and it's a confirmed situation. Thank you so much for reminding about this one. Yeah, but situation with the Ukrainian grain is absolutely crazy, and the way Israel responds to this is also crazy. But on the other hand, when you think about this, Benjamin Netanyahu calls Putin literally like maybe every week. While they don't communicate with Zelensky much, however, they actually should. Okay. Uh, More insane cringe seen recently. Citizen of the terrorist empire begging Kremlin do something about Tuapse while accusing Ukrainians of being brainwashed. Yeah, I've seen this one. I have this video without translation, unfortunately, uh, and it's like very far away. All right, in my compilation. But I know what you're talking about. And it was actually very cringy. They don't blame Putin, of course. They blame Ukraine for what is happening in Tuapse. However, that's literally the result of Putin launching his missiles at Ukraine in February 2022. Like, when the Russians were launching their missiles at Ukrainian cities on the morning April 24th, 2022, they actually didn't think that their missiles were actually boomerangs, all right? And it takes some time before they return, but actually, yeah, they do. So you should send a bill to anyone that bought your stolen grain. I don't think that DPRK will pay. They're kind of struggling these days. They only have money to build nuclear missiles. So situation is crazy. The only crazier situation I could observe these days is the situation with Bonya, and you probably remember this one. We talked about her on our previous streams. That is the Russian influencer who said that people are afraid of Putin, and Putin should actually get more involved, all right, get more involved in the life of his population, because there are people repressed for free speaking. There are people suffering from pollution and stuff like that. There are people who suffer because Russia decided to take all their cattle and yada yada. And she didn't blame Putin directly. She actually said, "Dear Mr. Tsar, you probably don't know this, but there are things happening in your empire." She lives in Monaco, she doesn't care. And she has millions of followers. Immediately after that, the Russian propagandists started bullying this Russian influencer. And this actually reminds me, in Ukraine, we have a saying, a frog fucked a viper. All right. You can imagine frog, you can imagine the viper, and you can imagine frog doing it. All right. So when we say "ебала жаба гадюку," we mean situation exactly like that. For example, when Trump starts a war against Khamenei, or for example, when one Russian imperialist starts this Jabba Haduking against other Russian imperialists on the media, and it's like everywhere. I'm sure you have like better examples, all right? I just trying to translate from like Ukrainian folklore into a language that is easy to understand. All right, so that is exactly what we can see happening in the Russian media right now. And we remember that Solovyov and a bunch of other Russian propagandists were calling her a bitch, a whore, and they were saying like, what the hell is she doing in Monaco? We should block all of her accounts, her bank account. We should make FSB go after her and stuff like that. Is she in Monaco legally? And what is she doing in Monaco while her brave Russian people are struggling, fighting the war against evil West, things like that. So you probably thought that the war in the internet started and somebody had to win actually this war. No, unfortunately there were no winners in this war, and everything ended when they decided to collaborate. And Solovyov actually apologized to Bonya for calling her a bitch, a whore, and stuff. And Bonya also said, everything's fine. We don't care much. All right. Like, it happens. It happens. There were commentaries. All right. There were commentaries actually supporting Bonya, that Bonya helped many, many Russian people to actually speak up. But in reality, that is exactly how it ends. All right. You can see Solovyov smiling and joking to Bonya, and Bonya smiling back, and Solovyov basically
Конечно, я был слишком эмоциональным.
Sorry, I will vomit. I will just read what he says, because I cannot stand his stupid voice. He says, I was too emotional, and that's Bonya on air, live, together with Solovyov, this Russian degenerate. And he says, I was too emotional, and whatever was my motivation behind why and what I'm saying, of course, I had to be more professional or whatever, using my language. Oh, that's Russian ship being hit. So this is how it ends. That is literally frog and viper over there That's the core of it, my friends, because Russia has no people who can speak up. And currently, decent Russians are, if they exist, they either serve in the Ukrainian armed forces or they just support those guys serving in the Ukrainian armed forces. He called her that, well, that is awful. I wouldn't even talk to him if I were her. Absolutely, absolutely. I wouldn't do that either if I was her. But that's Zhaba Hadyukin, the Russian version, all right? She blamed Putin, but then apparently when he decided, when Solovyov and others gave her a hint that she might actually have her bank account blocked in Russia. Maybe something else, all right, because Russians have eyes in Monaco as well. Maybe that was the moment when she just decided, let's go to his stream online, let's talk like good friends, and basically settle the war. Okay, my friends, it was a long stream. I need more coffee, definitely, because um, I woke up like 6 a.m. and since that time I was monitoring the situation in Tuapse and also trying to research the latest updates about the upcoming Russia's Victorgy Day. That was insane. And my God. He said he insults women out of respect. Yes, exactly. Yeah. He also fucks for virginity and drinks to show his protest against alcoholism. Switch to yerba mate with curcuma and honey. Oh, curcuma. I remember back in the days, when I worked with the marketing department. Um, so we had to monitor a lot of like marketing related, advertisement related stuff in our social media back before the war. And kurkuma actually turned into a meme in Ukraine because when you open a website, for example, news website, and generally when you open any given website today, you have plenty of targeted advertisement on it and stuff like that. And for some reason, people would see a lot of advertisement of, like traditional medicine or whatever. How to explain this? Like, if your head hurts, don't drink aspirin. Better press your head against a cold glass. And the cold glass will suck the bad energy from your head and everything will be fine, all right? And your chakras will open and everything stabilizes. So like that sort of traditional medicine. And in the internet, you could see a lot of things like advertisement. For example, you have papillomas or zits. They will disappear in just 3 days if you take curcuma and 3 dots, like and of course you're like, oh my god, what should I do with curcuma to make my zits disappear? And of course you click on this advertisement and it opens a fuckload of websites and windows on your screen. You receive like 10,000 viruses, all sorts of malware and stuff. And curcuma actually became like a meme in Ukraine because every freaking Telegram channel would advise you how to cure your uh, blindness with curcuma, how to grow muscle or other parts of body, you know. So for a while, curcuma actually turned into a meme. It was kind of funny. Chicken shit at honey. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's like basically a Russian recipe that treats everything. Curcuma, the ginger and turmeric. Orange ginger. Orange ginger. Orange ginger. I welcome the cancellation of Moscow parade. One less opportunity for F to embarrass Slovakia. One more opportunity for him to embarrass himself. Um, like not like it's cancelled completely, but the military column is cancelled. All right. Most probably the thumbnail can be a bit misleading, but the military parade, all right? The parade itself will take place. There might be some cadets, some Russia's Putlerjugend marching on the streets that we will see, but most probably no Russian tanks. Maybe the T-34, the one that we could see like 2 years ago, maybe they will bring that one. But like those long columns of military vehicles, Oreshnik, all that stuff, we won't see that. And of course, most probably we will not see like golf carts. On the other hand, why? I would be very, very happy to see actually Russia showing its military might. Imagine like brave Russian warriors with toilets riding the golf carts, the Chinese golf carts. Uh, that would be very inspiring, all right? That would actually portray the current state of the Russian military and the goals they're trying to achieve in Ukraine. Russia's military parades of golf carts, motorcycles, that one would be actually really cool because, you know, when you ride a motorbike, the sound is actually really, really kick-ass. And biker vatniks, biker vatniks, my god. Um, what else? The donkey column. Imagine the Russian tradition. Russians have this tradition of, you know, like Russian hussars. They fight like crazy. They drink like motherfucker, like those guys. Russian hussars on donkeys, on horses. Russians could showcase the best Kalmyk horse riding traditions right there on the Red Square. Horse riding with AK, you know, things like that. That'd be much better than literally showing a destitute parade without any armored vehicles. Literally, bring golf carts, bring motorcycles, bring donkeys. You can also make, you know, like a petting zoo right there. You can ride those donkeys and then you can also bring them to the kids, give the kids like fruits or something. Sorry, I forgot about the deficit. No fruits for donkeys, but they can at least pet those donkeys and make a bunch of pictures. Would be really, really cool. But another interesting thing that I wanted to talk about is it's something that I actually forgot to mention in this episode is Russia's new trend. So Russians um, started opening new sort of groceries. Okay. What sort of groceries are we talking about? We are talking about like slightly expired things. It's an illustrative photo right there. We are talking about slightly expired things, slightly less quality, the fruits or veggies that are slightly rotten, all right, they might not look so attractive, but again, Russians can eat it. different sorts of discounts and stuff like that. So basically, in Russia, in simple words, they call it the grocery stores for poor. And currently, the number of such groceries in Russia has increased by 26% this year. That is according to the external intelligence of Ukraine. That is the data provided by the Ukrainian External Intelligence Service. Why is this happening? It's happening because the only thing that can defeat Putin in Russia is empty fridge. All right. An empty fridge in a Russian apartment is actually a very, very uh, horrifying, very, very serious weapon against Putin's regime. And that is why Putin is trying to keep his serfs fed, even though they have plenty of deficits. The prices are growing in the grocery stores. The VAT is growing. The amount of money he will collect this year from his serfs is approximately 1 trillion rubles, which is exactly equal to the amount of oil export he lost. So now the Russians are literally paying for Putin's own mishap, all right, for Putin's own burning oil refineries. The Russians have to pay from their pockets. And basically, the grocery stores for poor is Russia's answer to this. Slightly expired or slightly rotten. Could be North Korean imports. I think that at this point North Korea might actually thrive because North Korea provides so much to the destitute Russian Federation, even though North Korea is not necessarily rich itself. Is the vodka discounted? I believe that vodka is like constantly discounted in Russia by default because Russians don't need sober people at all. They even have their favorite staple, ugurchiki krum krum. Yeah, those sound to be rare even in those poorhouse grocery shops. I agree. The empty fridge is the strongest weapon the Russians have against Putin. All right, because it was always like that. Whenever you have the situation like famine, famine that follows different uprisings and stuff, the elimination of the Tsar's family actually happened with this on the background. Slightly used food stuff. Yeah, something like that. What's your take on Caucasus after the war? Will there be a fourth Chechen war? We talked about this with Kristaps on the previous stream, and the point was that Chechens, so not Chechens, but Kadyrovites, all right? Chechens actually feel very, very upset when we call Kadyrovites Chechens, but it's very hard to avoid attaching them to the geography, right? Anyways, it's like Iranians would feel very upset if you would call them Khameneians, all right? So current Chechens, the current regime ruling in Chechnya, all right? Kadyrov, the dude, in Kristap's opinion, the dude is kind of hated by everybody else. But on the other hand, why would they much hate them, considering the fact that he is receiving a lot of dotations and a lot of money from Kremlin itself? So Will there be the war? It's actually possible, but only if the Chechens that are currently fighting in Ukraine against the Russian invaders decide to return home. And actually, Ukrainians can easily support them. This absolutely noble cause is absolutely justified in my personal opinion. Will there be a fourth Chechen war? It's possible, but it depends on Chechens themselves. All right. Will Ukraine support the Chechens who want to return home and remove the pro-Russian government? Wholeheartedly. All right. They will support them with whatever we have. The last president of Chechnya was Dudaev. Absolutely legendary person. Absolutely. Dudaev could become basically one of the strongest modern leaders, I think. Like, I don't know, like Kaczynski, like Valensa, like you name it. Dudaev was great. Dudaev was great. He was educated. He was a pilot. Like you don't often see stupid pilots. The guy had absolutely brilliant mind, and yeah, and he was eliminated by Russian scum. But his words keep living. With that, my friends, I will stop torturing you. It's like 2 hours speaking. And I think it's also a good idea to go and munch something because I haven't even eaten this morning, which probably explains why I'm losing words and cannot find proper explanations for what you're seeing on the screen. So, with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching. I will see you just a bit later. And treat yourself with something good. This is very, very important. When you feel depressed, when you feel demotivated and burned out, open your fridge and freaking raid it. Imagine yourself being a Genghis Khan, all right? Just go and pillage it and satisfy yourself because, when you don't have anything, all right, to cheer you up with, the only thing that you always have is food. So please treat yourself. All right, don't starve. And we will see you later. Big thanks to our brave moderators. Big thanks to everyone in the chat. Big thanks to the family. We'll see you later and be safe. Bye bye.